Yeah, just quick before we start, I know Luke spoke a little bit about it, and I saw Wayne's tribute there this morning, his announcement. Just our thoughts and prayers from our organization for Barry Melrose. He was a terrific coach, a big influence, with Luke and I, obviously, in our careers, but I think with the organization itself. And so just he's in our thoughts and our prayers within our organization for sure here. So we'll start with that. And open it up, I guess.
Rob, there's been a lot of talk about the roster situation. You don't want to carry 21 players, and Todd mentioned it's not ideal, but do you view it as sustainable? Can you go 82 games with only 21 players?
I don't even think we're going to be able to start with 21 players. So the answer is no, it's not sustainable for 82 games. We knew the situation we were in. There's a handful of teams in it that have been in it in the past years and everything. You make do with it. We experimented with 11 and 7 the other day. Would prefer 12 and 6 at times. You saw today we're one less forward with Arvidsson. He's questionable for tomorrow. We're hoping he can play, but if he can't, we would be in that situation tomorrow.
Is there any update on what the injury or potential?
Just lower body, but it's just it's day to day where you get in the difference is the LTI situation, which is a number of games in that. But right now it would be day to day. An injury suffered yesterday in practice.
Luke said this team's built to win. Is this a legitimate Stanley Cup contender in your eyes?
Yeah, I think we have a number of positions that we need to be in that consideration, average to above average play in a lot. I think we're built that way. No real things that can take over and carry a whole season. We need a combination of everything from the goalies to the defense to the forwards, PK, PP. But the pieces are there that if they do that, there will be success.
Speaking of goaltending, what Critic on waivers today?
Yep.
What's the if he clears, what happens?
He would be assigned to Ontario. We're not in a position to be able to carry 3. We did it for a day just because we could, and the rosters came in after. But the way it's played out, we wouldn't be in a situation to do that, even if we had really been, a cap room to carry 23 players. Not a lot of teams carry 3 goalies. We have never done it here in the years I've been here.
When you signed Trevor in July, what was your vision of how you could help this team, and then what have you seen from him as a veteran and how he impacts these younger guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really easy transition, him coming back into what he brings as a player and off the ice. I think last year down the stretch and in the playoffs, the reliability of that type of position, to be able to go penalty kill-wise, 5-on-5 matchups, and just the professionalism on an everyday basis. He had that. We have known that. I think we lacked that the last couple seasons, and he brings that element to us. And he started right from day one with that. He's been in that leadership group because he belongs there.
Would it be fair to say that waiver eligibility determined a lot of kind of the defensive side of things, especially going 4-2, unbalanced, not having Clark, not having Spence? And do you anticipate maybe that changing early in the season, or is that kind of remains to be seen?
Yeah, I mean, waiver eligibility plays in a lot of times in different situations. And you mentioned the 2 players, both Spence and Clark, are not needing that in different situations when we get to 6. The original plan would have been most likely 12 forward, 7D, knowing that if you did have an injury, you can dress 7. It's hard for 4 to play back on D. Our situation kind of unfolded with a suspension that is treated very similar to an injury, no cap relief. But then with Arvidsson also, you will have to adjust tomorrow if he's not able to play.
It seems like every year we get a young player that comes up out of nowhere. And this year it seems to be Alex Laferriere.
Yes.
What's your take on his game so far?
Yeah, and I think we got a good read last year, obviously following throughout his college career. A lot of times you go into the season and you put importance on certain prospects because of their timing and the situation they're in, whether it's junior or college. And we had that with Alex, understanding that he was getting close to us wanting to get him out of school and start his pro career. Got a little benefit of the doubt to watch him last year around our big club till playoffs, and then also with Ontario, and understanding that he continued this summer and brought that throughout training camp. We had the suspension to Kaliev just with the last couple preseason games, and you saw Laferriere step in with Dubois and Fiala and complement that line in the characteristics that he plays with his speed. He's able to play with good players. That was a report from the coaches right away. So He'll get his opportunity tomorrow. It's really nice to see, but I do think our development, I had it pretty close that he would help us this year, just whether it was going to be the first game of the season. Some other things had to come into play, but he's done a terrific job.
Rob, you mentioned the suspension to Arthur County.
Yep.
He's in Ontario right now, but
Yeah.
obviously can't serve that suspension down there. Is there a
Yeah.
plan to keep him
Yeah.
there and prolong that suspension, or will he be back up?
Not necessarily. The plan would be to bring him back on days of the game to serve that suspension. Just the roster flexibility in between, because he doesn't need waivers, and but he can't. Being on Ontario roster during an NHL game doesn't count as a game. So the idea would be bring him back tomorrow to start serving that suspension.
Rob, the roster really wasn't set, but you have two significant players on the Walkers, Arvidsson and
Yep.
Roy.
Yep.
Is there interest in signing them during the season, or are you going to wait till the end
Yep.
of the season to make a decision?
Yeah, I think that would probably take place a little after Christmas. Understand where our team is exactly and what we're headed to. They're both very important players for us. They've come in and stabilized things here, got us into the playoffs, and now we look to take the next step with them.
Obviously, the last 2 seasons, Edmonton being the roadblock.
Yep.
What has to happen this season for not to be 3 in a row?
Well, Pimlico has to be better if we have to match it. There's other teams that are just as good or better and that will be competing. There's a lot of things. I think we've improved our team from a year ago, which we wanted to do. And like I said, it's a balanced lineup, and if you can get average to above average production and play out of the group collectively, I think we have chances to do some things in the playoffs.
You mentioned starting the year with kind of a less than ideal situation, and
Yeah.
starting the year at home.
Yeah.
You look at the middle of the season when there'll be half a dozen games through 3 time zones. Players aren't accessible from Ontario necessarily. Are you confident that this is going to work itself out through contingencies, or would there be a situation where you might look at kind of getting some breathing room?
Well, I mean, the breathing room is if we're healthy, we have an extra player. So you always have that extra. We chose to put the money on the players that would have been the 12 and 6 playing, and not so much in the 3 extra players that you're able to carry. And if you look at rosters, I think there's a lot that are in similar situations. We'll see how it goes. What I've said, we've started this way right away. We were hoping not to with an extra player available, but then there's a suspension, and then there's an injury and an off day that can add to that. You could get into a situation where you play that man short. Now you're in an emergency situation. We have a lot of players eligible in Ontario that would come up and play that. There'll be multiple, player transactions, even on off days and different things, because trying to create cap space and accrue it during the season. So you'll see a lot of transactions. We knew that situation. Lots of teams have been in it and have done it too.
Speaking of breathing room, one way to get breathing room would be to trade someone with a higher cap hit. Is there any idea or plan to maybe make it
No.
at some point?
No, we like the roster that we set forth here from the summer on. Pretty much the team that went to Australia, I know there was a few extra players, but you envision using them through different injuries and times during the season, but that we were comfortable with that roster.
Can you confirm the report that Todd was given
Yep.
the year?
Yeah, he was, and that took place very shortly after the season. His whole staff is on that, so they all have, I guess it's 2 years here, this year and next year.
Rob, zooming out a little bit from just the Kings, the NHL recently announced a ban on all
Yeah.
rainbow color tape for Pride nights and practices and everything.
Yep.
A lot of people view that as a step backward
Yeah.
for the league. Just what are your thoughts on
Well,
that decision?
I don't think we control a lot of that. That's implemented from the NHL down. I just heard that this morning here. With Luke handles a lot of the productions during the game and different events, and from our standpoint, that's our directive from the NHL that we will follow.
Rob, the Melbourne trip was obviously exciting and
Yeah.
unusual. Is your sense that the guys, they're physically ready, they're fast,
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah. Scheduling wise, if you had to say, okay, you're going to have to take a trip and you're going to go that far and you're going to play games, the way it's set up early in preseason allowed lots of time off after when they came home, and then it gave the majority of that roster three preseason games. Some of them got into that weekend series before, so yeah, there was plenty of time there. I think the other benefit we'll take from it is, Todd, probably like most coaches, they want to get down to numbers right away. Get down to a simple roster where they can implement their special teams and systems right through camp. Well, we've had that from pretty much day one with that roster.
Rob, in regards to Spence, can you just talk about
Yep.
what you saw from him this camp
Yeah.
and sort of the decision making on where he'll start the year?
Yeah, and he was scheduled to be up here. I think that was the plan going through here the last couple of days. He had a real strong camp. I think him and LaFerriere probably stood out with the group that we had going over to Australia. In certain situations there, we've had a few years with him in our system and being able to see what he can do. Due to the waiver situation, to get 6 defensemen, to get 12 forwards, well, I was hoping 12 forwards for tomorrow. We'll still have to wait and see how that plays out. That's the situation with Spence yesterday.
How critical this season is this for Quinton Byfield?
Big. Yeah, Quinton, Kaliev, all, and we said that at the end of the year, for us to get better, to be able to compete in the playoffs, not necessarily players have to play, all the positions, but the young guys have to take steps too. So Quinton, Spence, Clark, Kaliev, LaFerriere's in this mix now. When they do come in the lineup, not just play but perform. And Quinton's got into a role last year, really effective on a very good line for us, and we've continued that throughout camp into this season.
Along those lines, I mean, usually when you see a team turn it around the way you guys have, they hit on a couple high lottery picks, Crosby, Malkin, Taves,
Yep.
Kane, whoever it may be. You guys haven't had that. You've kind of gotten players every other way but that.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something maybe underrated in your group? Is that still maybe that upward mobility?
Yeah, well,
that those guys have.
Yeah, and if you just look, so Kaliev on the top line, and then Byfield up there with Kopitar, and Kaliev where he was slotted in, LaFerriere filling his spot, Mikey Anderson, Matt Roy, guys, they might not have been the high draft picks in that, but playing very prominent roles on our team. So every year you try to incorporate more and more of those draft picks into there. But I do think for us to be able to take another step, the young players that contributed last year continue need to grow.
Speaking on high draft picks, Alex Turcotte's a player who,
Yep.
for injuries and different reasons, hasn't established himself on
Yep.
the NHL roster, but had
Yep.
a very strong camp.
Yeah, real good camp.
It's a long-term plan for Alex Turcotte, right?
Same games play. I think we mentioned that at the end of the year. We want him playing consistently over time. He had a real good. Probably should have mentioned him with the group with LaFerriere and Spence. I thought Turcotte, and then he continued it again the other day in a preseason game in Ontario. They'll start this weekend. So. Encouraging to see much more comfortable at camp this year. Again, probably the first summer in the last 4 or 5 years for him where it wasn't a rehab summer, but actually a training summer, and came in with that comfort level. Coaches noted it throughout camp, and another kind of added bonus to a group going over to Australia. The young kids that did play in the 3 or 4 games when we were home with that group, that we didn't have the majority of the NHL guys going, is that the younger players got put in positions where they could perform. If you have veterans in your lineup, sometimes they're not in those roles. But I think Alex, both Turcotte and LaFerriere showed in those.
Is Alex still viewed as someone who can potentially be
Yep.
a major core piece
Yep.
in the future?
Yeah. We need him playing consistently, and hopefully he can get that this year. But he did look very comfortable in camp, probably the best camp for us for sure.